Joni, Jaco and Hejira. From the late 1960s and throughout the next decade, Joni Mitchell steered her way through a fascinating musical journey. A journey that took her from the folk of her first album, Song for a Seagull, to the rich, layered musical textures of Court and Spark and Hissing of Summer Lawns. By now she was incorporating jazz, folk, rock and even world music. But Joni wasn't satisfied. As she says, after Court and Spark I pretty much got fed up with 4 beats to the bar. And as she moved forward, she found it increasingly difficult to find musicians who could play what she wanted. As Joni started to explore ever new musical landscapes, she was advised to look to jazz musicians to realise these visions. As she says, there were notes and subtleties that were just getting buried. One of her main frustrations was when it came to rhythm sections. She says in the 70s you had this distant, kind of dead bass sound. I didn't care for it at all. Every bassist wanted to root the chord, and I was, why can't we do it like this? Start at the bottom, then play in the mid-range, and then return. But every bassist I tried hated that. Someone suggested she should check out this crazy bassist in Florida. Joni asked, will he do this stuff? He's already doing that weird shit, was the reply. So Joni met Jaco, and we got Hejira. I first heard Jaco when he played on 2 tracks on Weather Report's Black Market album, and I had gone out and bought his solo album on the strength of those 2 tracks. His solo album didn't disappoint, and I still feel to this day it's a masterpiece. I feel that Joni must have heard Continuum from that solo album and thought, that's exactly what I want for Hejira. Hejira's iconic album cover perfectly sums up the mood of the album. It's all about travelling, moving, restlessness, as Joni documents a series of road trips she had made in 1975 and 1976. I remember I got my copy of the album on a freezing cold day in November. It was bitter, and just as I returned home, the snow was beginning to fall. I put it on the turntable. As the opening track Coyote got underway, I thought, what is this? I'd never heard anything quite like it. So you have Joni on electric rhythm guitar, Bobby Hall on percussion, and Jaco on fretless bass. At first listen, it seemed like Jaco was playing another song entirely, but then I played it again, and slowly it all fell into place. Joni had been utilising these unorthodox guitar tunings for a while now, and what she had found is that they opened up so many new melodic possibilities. Here in this stripped down format, just guitar, bass and percussion, you can really hear what she's doing, and nothing is getting buried. Joni saw the guitar as a multi-voiced instrument. When I'm playing the guitar, she said, I hear it as an orchestra. The top 3 strings being my horn section, the bottom 3 being cello, viola and bass. The bass being indicated but not rooted. And accompanying all this melodic invention, you have Mr. Pastorius. It's like everything Joni is doing, vocally and musically, he's playing right back at her, just feeling what she's doing, where she's going, and answering back with his bass. The whole of that first side of Hejira is just magical. But at the end of side 1, we get the title track, Hejira, and it just blew me away. This is the second track on the album that Jaco appears on, but here he transforms that 4-string bass guitar into sounding like a horn player, like a Coltrane, a Miles or Wayne Shorter. Jaco's bass swirls, soars, moves in perfect time with Joni. Everything she sings, he's right there, dancing in and out of her vocal melodies. After all these years, I still find that almost telepathic interplay between them takes my breath away. The next track Jaco plays bass on is the driving Black Crow. Here again we just have Joni on electric rhythm guitar, the great Larry Carlton with some great almost psychedelic pedal steel guitar, and then there's Jaco holding down the rhythm when he has to, adding in these little fills but never crowding Joni's vocals or Larry's guitar. And so to the last track, Refuge of the Roads. It's pretty much just Joni and Jaco again. Just listen how Jaco gives Joni space, just steps in when the spaces occur, just adding, never dominating. Two musical geniuses. Joni Mitchell. I don't know how he hung in there with me. I sometimes let a long time go by between notes. I'd go bump and he'd catch it with me. There'd be a lot of space. It wasn't like there was a band or somebody keeping metered time. I thought, how did he do that? Then I remembered he used to watch my foot. My right foot would be keeping the steady time. Joni would work with Jaco on 2 more studio albums, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter and Mingus, both highly underrated. For example, Don Juan's Reckless Daughter, a friend of mine once remarked about that album, you could listen to this record for decades and still find stuff you hadn't heard before. It's an album I'll be covering fully sometime in the future. The title track has always felt that it came from those Hejira sessions. Joni says at first the percussion on that track was very Latin orientated, but she was after a more Native American Indian sound. Jaco started striking the end of his strings by the bridge, and then he would slide his palm all the way to the head. He set up this pattern, this rhythmic pattern, do 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 dum, do 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 dum, and after a few minutes his whole hand had begun to bleed from all the sliding up and down the strings. But he was so excited he discovered this new thing. But after that he developed calluses on his hands and was always doing it. So, like I said, I'll be covering Don Juan's Reckless Daughter and Mingus in depth in the near future. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and stay safe, stay well, and I'll see you in the next video.